Let's move on to this now. Preserving and acknowledging the Afrikaans language is the DA's top priority today. Party leader John Steenhuisen, along with the DA member responsible for public service and administration, Schreiber, are embarking on a protest to have the language declared an indigenous language. They will be handing over a petition to the Higher Education Department in response to Minister Blade Nzimande's apparent classification of Afrikaans as foreign in his department's policy framework. eNCA's Barry Bateman is following that story. Let's go live to him now and get an update. And so it's election season, Barry. Issues that are up in the air that sometimes are of substantive concern also get re-energized and rejigged and also launched into various campaigns. Last week, the DA was focusing on water infrastructure. This week, it's about Afrikaans.
Absolutely, and if you can see the crowd behind me, not many people. It's more of a picket than a protest, but it's the message, I suppose, that's the important part. Afrikaans is inheems, are some of the placards that read here, which stands for Afrikaans is indigenous. And that, of course, is a statement against the policy documents that have been drafted by Blade Nzimande's department, which declares the language as not indigenous to South Africa. Well, the DA, with leader John Steenhuisen, and as you said there, Schreiber, they're here today to hand in their petition their memorandum that they're going to be demanding that in terms of those policy documents in the department, that the language gets recognized as indigenous and gets the fair treatment along with all the other official languages in the country. But you're quite right, it is election season. One might view this particular rally point on the issue of Afrikaans, the language aspect. You'll recall in the last local government elections, or in the last elections, there was a lot of the vote that was lost to the Freedom Front Plus, the Vryheidsfront, which might be, perceived as the Afrikaans vote moving across to that side. Well, this might then be seen as an effort to try and get that part of the electorate to come back to the DA, showing that this party is also fighting for that particular community.
You know, Barry, I must say that I've not really followed this debate that closely. And I'll tell you why. Because in the bigger scheme of things, when there's so much to debate, I just didn't think that there's any debate about Afrikaans being an indigenous South African language. And therefore, I thought to myself, really, in 2021, this is still a topic that we debate. Put aside the politics of what the apartheid regime did with Afrikaans, and isolate that from the language's status as a South African language. So as best as you can, help me, the person who's not been following the debate, understand what exactly did Blade Nzimande do that sort of raises what I think should be not even a debate in 2021?
Well, it's the issue of a policy document within the department, and it has to do with the development of education within the higher education sector. Now, there have been several court cases, some down at Stellenbosch University, and of course most recently at UNISA, which ultimately went up to the Constitutional Court, where it was found that Afrikaans is very much an indigenous language and should be, and that was a language policy issue, sorry, at least I can just clarify, that was being argued, the changes being argued at UNISA, and Afrikaans was removed as a language of instruction. Well, the court found that they essentially didn't follow the entire process or the correct process to be able to make that particular decision. But it went all the way up to the Constitutional Court, and the court eventually ruling in favor of the applicants. And it was in that particular judgment that it was stated quite clearly that Afrikaans is considered an indigenous language. Well, it's Blade Nzimande who's pushing ahead, saying basically that this is not the case, and that is the policy that is being adopted in terms of the programs of action that will be carried out by the Higher Education Department. The argument from the DA and other advocates for Afrikaans is that this means that Afrikaans wouldn't get the same equal footing as any other language in South Africa, and that is what they are fighting against.
All right, let's see how it unfolds there. The DA picketing outside the Department of Higher Education and Training. Thank you for that. That's eNCA's Barry Bateman. And as I say, I don't know, maybe I'm clueless. I thought it's beyond debate that Afrikaans is an indigenous language, is it not? I mean, if you think about the politics of what apartheid did with its preference for Afrikaans over other languages, now there is something that was problematic that we can talk about. But whether it's or not it's indigenous, if it's not indigenous to South Africa, it's indigenous in which part of the world? Look around the world, try and find Afrikaans elsewhere and see, and also read up about the origins of the language itself. Don't confuse it with the Dutch language. Those are two different things. Afrikaans is not Dutch, it's Afrikaans. All right.